Well, hello there. So it has been, I don't know how long it had been since I checked in on Goose, but definitely over a year, maybe even 2 years since I had checked out anything recently they had done. And over that time, I'm constantly getting people asking me if I like Goose. Have you checked out Goose? Have you heard this? And the answer is always no. And so finally I did. This time it was something they had just uploaded to their YouTube channel recently from Grand Rapids. Set 2, Night 2 is what I went for. I'm not positive if every night the second set is where it's at with Goose, but I thought that was obviously a safe place to start. I recognized Dripfield from the title, and then the other songs in the set I did not recognize through the title alone, and I gotta say, the Dripfield was close to outstanding, really. I was not expecting this, and look, with every song they have, I feel like the weakest part is going to be the vocals, which is not that big of a deal, because that's the least important thing to me, really. I don't really care too much about, if the vocals are so bad it ruins it, that's one thing. But if they're just kind of something that's there, just like another instrument or whatever, that's fine for me. I don't really care what they're saying. I'm not really tuning into rock bands to find out what I should think and how I should feel. It's okay. I know King Gizzard fans are really bad at that. A lot of them, they wouldn't know what to think and feel if it wasn't for Stu telling them. So let's get on with the show, shall we? Now that I really just really wanted to give my thoughts on lyrics and vocals. Okay, enough said about Goose. So then, really, there was really the heaviness of it that surprised me. The guitar, just a very hard guitar, and then just about every song, once you think it's kind of winding down and moving on to something else, really, so specifically Dripfield took a certainly a second round in the jam. While this one maybe not as hard, the tempo was kicked up a little bit, but it still had a little bit of a heavy feel to it. And then we get into This Old Sea, and I was still thinking, like, I wasn't really planning on listening to all of this, but the Dripfield was so good, I stayed with This Old Sea. Now, while Dripfield pretty much immediately got to the ass kicking, it took This Old Sea a moment, and had maybe more of a bluesy sound, still kind of rocking. They had sort of left that and it's still there, though. There's just a sort of almost like this synth electronic sound that Goose has, which is a lot of modern stuff, really. Even the vocals almost like, I don't know if they're auto tuned or not, but it sure sounds like it. And, I know part of that is just like, well, hey, man, this is just what modern music sounds like. It's not the 1960s anymore, you fucking geezer. Well, I'm aware of that, okay? But it doesn't mean I have to like it, all right? Like, I went on to Dogs in a Pile next. Well, let's not get to that. Let's finish this up with this Goose. But I was going to say that had more of like maybe a modern Grateful Dead sound with Dogs in a Pile, perhaps. But This Old Sea was still quite rocking, really, though. Not as heavy. I think I prefer Dripfield just with the overall hardness of it. It just felt like a very hard rock jam at one point, which I don't recall hearing that a lot in the past when I did dive into Goose. And the fact that it was one song in and I was already really enjoying it. And the lights, I will say, are somewhat unique. I don't believe I've seen lights like that before. There's elements to it that you see at Fish, but overall, it seems like and some of the shots they do on their webcast, I think I would give their webcast an A overall. Just almost some cinematic shots, really, I would say. So they do a really good job of that, a really good job of the lights. I was impressed with that, which I don't recall remembering a whole lot before, which would make sense. Those guys are all gaining experience every time Goose goes out and does a tour. So that would make sense. Just like, this 40 years in, Fish's lights are at an all-time high. So, and then we move on to Creatures. Early on in Creatures, Trevor was really popping. I was kind of wondering, where is Trevor? I really had to kind of focus and listen in for Trevor throughout. But in this one, he was really popping, probably the most psychedelic of the jamming this. Kind of had these eerie, spacey moments. And then toward the tail end, it really kicks on to that full-on, like, sort of synthy rock sound that Goose has, which carries us into a cover. I don't know the song. I know the song well enough to know that it was a cover song, but other than that, I don't know much about it. So right then is when I bailed. So I think, I would give them all I think just probably in order, Dripfield, This Old Sea, Creatures was 1, 2, 3, as far as how I felt about them, as far as how much I liked which or whatever. And, I don't know that I'm still going to be checking out a ton of Goose. It's like every band I like. They play a lot. They have a lot of stuff out there. They're playing long live shows. There's only so much time, and it's rare that I'm going to get around to Goose. But I did want to set aside some time today to get to Goose and Dogs in a Pile. And here I've talked for over 5 minutes about Goose, so maybe I'll just save Dogs in a Pile for another day, or at the very least another video. All right, so those are my thoughts on Goose. They have gotten heavier, I believe. I like that. I don't know what was the drummer wearing. And I look, do you see any donut? You don't see any donut pattern stuff around here. That's because I'm not into these drummer gimmicks with what they're wearing on stage. Believe it or not, as a Fish fan, I'm not into that. So I don't know what this guy was wearing. It's like a quilted bulletproof vest that he was wearing backwards or something. I don't know. At least with Fishman and the Moo, it's functional as a drummer. Lots of freedom. What was this guy trying to do? Maybe it's a gift from a fan. I don't know. I don't know anything about that guy, but I didn't like what he was wearing. That and the vocals is about all I didn't like. All right, guys, boom, we're out of here.